I couldn't believe what I saw that night. It was supposed to be a quiet weekend, just me and Sarah finishing up the last details before our wedding. We'd been planning this for months, dreams, late-night talks, promises of forever. The house was quiet, the kind of silence that makes your skin crawl because you know something's wrong. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone when I saw the message pop up. It wasn't meant for me. It was a text from Jack, the guy who's supposed to be my brother. But the message wasn't about a game or some shared joke. It was something else, something I didn't want to see. Tonight was perfect. Can't wait to see you again. Sorry I couldn't tell you earlier. I froze, my heart hammered in my chest. My palms started to sweat. I stared at the screen, my mind racing to fit this into any logical explanation. But there was no logical explanation. Jack had been acting strange lately, more distant, avoiding family gatherings, texting late at night. I'd noticed the way Sarah looked at him sometimes, like she was hiding something, but I never in a million years thought she was capable of cheating on me, especially not with Jack. I clicked on the message thread. There were other texts, more intimate, more revealing. I saw references to secret meetings, plans for what they called our special nights, and apologies for keeping it hidden. All those subtle clues that I'd ignored, her phone dropping into her purse when she thought I wasn't looking, her quick glances when Jack texted her at odd hours, the way she'd brush off my questions with a tight smile. My stomach dropped. Every nerve in my body felt like it was on fire. I stood up slowly, trembling, and grabbed her phone off the table. I needed to see everything. My fingers shook as I scrolled through her messages, each one worse than the last. They weren't just flirting, they were planning to cheat, to keep their secret from me right up until the last moment. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My head spun, my vision blurred at the edges. The world around me suddenly felt colder, sharper. I clenched my fists so tight I thought I'd break something. How long had this been going on? How many times had I trusted her? And Jack, my own brother, lying right to my face, betraying me like this. I wanted so badly to scream, to shout at her, to tear that phone apart. But I stood there, silent, clutching her device like it was a grenade waiting to explode. And in that silence, I realized that everything I believed about my life was a lie. The woman I trusted most in this world had been cheating on me with my brother. Her name was Sarah. She'd been my everything. And Jack, my own flesh and blood. Betrayal doesn't even begin to cover what I felt. I looked at the screen again, seeing the words, "Can't wait to see you tonight," and the sickening thought hit me. She knew I'd find out. She knew and still went ahead with it. My mind spun with fury and heartbreak. I knew I couldn't confront her that night, not yet. I needed a plan, something cold and calculated. I needed to see how deep this went, what else I didn't know. But the worst part, I knew I'd never be able to look at either of them the same way again. My trust was shattered, and I was left holding the pieces. I spent the next few hours packing around the house, trying to make sense of what I'd seen. Every time I thought about confronting Sarah, my stomach twisted. But I knew I had to be smart about this. If I blew everything up right away, I'd only ruin what little control I still had. Plus, I needed proof beyond that one message. I had to confirm whether Jack was just as deep in this mess as Sarah was. I decided to keep quiet for now. Instead, I pretended to sleep, lying stiff in bed while my mind raced with plans. Every breath I took felt shallow, my chest tight with a mix of rage and heartbreak. I kept replaying that message over and over. "Sorry I couldn't tell you earlier." That phrase echoed in my head like a punch to the gut. By dawn, I'd come up with a plan. I knew I had to catch them in the act to get undeniable evidence. That meant I needed to bait Sarah, get her to slip up again. I also wanted to see Jack's reaction when he realized I knew everything. I'd keep the facade of the happy fiancé until the right moment. I had to make her think she was safe so she'd lower her guard. I started by going to the store, buying a small hidden camera. Nothing fancy, just enough to record a conversation if I could get her to talk. I also got a blank phone. I knew Sarah kept her phone on her at all times, so I'd plant the fake one with her, then wait for her to do something stupid. Meanwhile, I had to figure out when she'd be home alone again. I didn't want her suspecting anything until I had solid proof. That day was tense. I spent it acting normal, but inside I was like a ticking bomb. I avoided her, kept my voice steady, and watched her every move. She was strangely calm, maybe even more nervous than usual, but she kept her composure. I knew she was hiding something. I could feel it in my bones. When she finally went out that evening, I prepared everything. I placed the hidden camera near the living room, tucked the fake phone into her purse, and waited. My hands felt clammy, my stomach in knots. I was about to turn her entire world upside down. I could hear my pulse pounding in my ears as I sat in the dark, waiting for her to come back. When she returned, she seemed a little more relaxed. I played the part of the calm fiancé, pouring her a glass of wine and asking about her day. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. That's when I decided to push a little to see if she'd slip up. "Hey, Sarah," I said casually, "you've been acting weird lately. Is something bothering you?" She hesitated, then shrugged. "Just tired, that's all, nothing to worry about." I nodded, feeling the thrill of catching her off guard. I knew she'd slip eventually, I just had to be patient. As she reached into her purse, I saw her hand brush the fake phone. My heart jumped, she was about to touch it. Then she paused. Her fingers lingered, and I caught her eye. "What's that?" I asked softly, motioning to her purse. She looked surprised, then nervously pulled out the fake phone, pretending to be unconcerned. "Nothing," she said quickly. "Just a backup in case my real phone died." I forced a smile, but inside I felt the coldness seep in. I knew she was hiding something, and I had the evidence to prove it. I also knew that tonight I'd finally get the answers I needed, and that the next step would be even darker. As she sat back down, I felt the weight of the coming confrontation settle on my chest. The game was about to begin, and I was ready to see how far she'd go to protect her lies. That night I couldn't sleep. Not really. Every time I closed my eyes, I replayed her little slip with the fake phone. It was like watching her lie, slow and deliberate, right in front of me. The calm in her voice, the way she looked away when I pressed her, these were signs I couldn't ignore anymore. She was hiding something massive, and I now had the evidence to back up my suspicion. I lay there in the dark, listening to her breathing, figuring out my next move. I knew I had to be careful. If I acted too soon, she'd cover her tracks, or worse, destroy whatever was left of our relationship, and I'd lose my chance at getting real answers. I needed her to slip up again, this time in a way that couldn't be denied. The morning brought the clarity I'd been waiting for. I decided I'd confront her directly, no more secrets, no more hiding. But I wasn't just going to accuse her out of anger. That'd be too obvious, too reckless. I'd let her hang herself. I'd wait until she was most relaxed, most vulnerable, and that's when I'd do it. While she was in the kitchen preparing breakfast, I leaned against the doorway, watching her like a predator. She was humming softly, pouring coffee, her hands trembling just slightly. I took a deep breath, feeling the cold sting of betrayal in my chest. "Sarah," I said, keeping my voice even, "can we talk?" She looked up, her face a mask of calm that didn't quite reach her eyes. "About what?" "About last night," I said. "Your phone, the fake one. Why did you lie about it?" Her face flickered, guilt maybe, or fear. "It's just a backup, nothing serious." I stepped closer, my fists clenched. "Don't lie to me. I saw the messages. I know about you and Jack." Her eyes widened. "You saw that?" "Yes," I said sharply. "You've been cheating on me with my brother. How long has this been going on?" She looked down, her fingers tightening around her mug. "I didn't mean for you to find out like this. Really, because it looks like you wanted me to find out." I felt my voice rise, but I kept it steady. "I trusted you, Sarah. I thought we had something real, but now I see I was just blind." She took a shaky breath. "It's not what it seems, Jack and I. We didn't plan for this. It just happened. I'm sorry." Sorry, that word felt like a slap. I knew I couldn't just walk away from this, not without making her regret everything. I needed to see her reaction when she realized I was prepared. So I pulled out the small recorder I'd hidden earlier, pressing record so I'd have undeniable proof. "Listen," I said coldly, "I want you to know I'm not going to let this slide. You and Jack, you've both betrayed me. But I'm not interested in making a scene yet. I want to see how far you'll go to deny what I already know." She looked like she wanted to say something, but then she just nodded. Her hands trembled as she put down the mug. I could see the panic in her eyes, and part of me felt sick, but I knew I had to stay firm. I was already planning my next steps, and I knew this was just the beginning. As she headed toward the bedroom, I slipped the recorder into my pocket. I didn't know what she'd do next, but I had everything I needed now: proof, emotion, a plan. I was tired of being played, tired of feeling like everything I believed was a lie. Tonight I'd set the stage for my revenge, and I knew this wasn't over yet. I just had to wait for the right moment when she'd let her guard down most, and then I'd strike back in a way she'd never see coming. That evening I made sure to act normal. I cooked dinner, kept my tone light, and pretended I was still the guy who was madly in love with her. Inside, though, I was a storm of cold calculation. I wanted her to think I was still the same guy, calm, reasonably trusting, so she'd relax enough to let her guard down. That was when I'd get her to slip again, and I was counting on the moment being perfect. Sarah was unusually quiet, but I played it off. We sat at the dinner table, ate in silence, her eyes flickering with guilt. I kept watching her, waiting for her to do something that confirmed my suspicions. Meanwhile, I kept recording everything she said, just in case I needed hard proof later. Once we finished eating, I suggested we take a walk outside. "Let's clear our heads," I said casually. She nodded, some tension still lingering in her shoulders. We stepped outside, the cool night air hitting my face like a slap. I held my phone in my pocket, ready to record if she said anything remotely suspicious. The silence was thick, and I could feel her nervousness. I decided to push again, softly. "Sarah, are you really happy?" I asked, trying to sound genuine but with an edge that made her slightly uneasy. She hesitated. I don't know. Things have been complicated lately." I steadied my voice. "Or maybe you're just hiding something." Her eyes darted away. "I'm not hiding anything." That's when I saw her hand linger near her purse again. I watched her carefully, instinct telling me she was about to do something stupid. She reached inside, pulled out her phone, and started scrolling. I pretended not to notice, but I was ready. Then she did it. She unlocked the phone and opened a messaging app. Her thumb hovered over the screen. I saw her eyes flicker with panic when she caught my gaze. Her face went pale, and she quickly closed the app, slipping the phone back into her purse. I stepped closer. "Who were you texting?" She looked stunned, but I didn't wait for her to answer. I reached out and gently but firmly pulled her hand away from her purse. "Show me," I demanded softly. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Then she finally whispered, "It's nothing, just a friend, Jack's friend." I shook my head. "That's not what the messages say, Sarah. I have proof. You're caught. You've been lying to me this whole time." Her shoulders trembled. "Please don't do this. I never meant to hurt you." But already crossing the line. I pulled out my phone, activating the recorder I'd hidden. "It's too late for apologies," I said quietly. "You're going to tell me everything now." She looked defeated, tears welling up in her eyes. "I don't know what you want me to say." I let her see the recording icon. "This is what you're going to say, the truth. No more lies, no more hiding." And so she broke down. She admitted to everything, her affair with Jack, how it started, how it went on behind my back. I felt the anger rising, but I kept my calm. I already knew the worst part. I just needed her to say it out loud to confirm what I'd seen in the messages. Her voice cracked when she said, "I was stupid. I didn't mean for it to get this far. I was just overwhelmed, confused." That was the point. I knew I had to act, not with violence but with certainty. I'd let her see that I had all the leverage now. She'd betrayed me, and she'd regret it every minute from here on out. And Jack? God, I'd deal with him later. Right now, Sarah was the one who needed to understand the depth of her betrayal. The night had just gotten darker. I was ready to unveil my plan, the slow, calculated revenge that would make her regret ever crossing me. I had enough now to start the real game. And I knew without a doubt that I was about to turn her world upside down. The next morning, I woke up with a clear intent. I had all the pieces I needed: her confession, the recordings, the evidence of her ongoing betrayal. It was time to execute my plan. I didn't want to just confront her and break things off. I wanted to make her regret every lie, every stolen moment, every second she spent betraying me. First, I crafted a message to Jack. Nothing obvious, just a simple text, cold and straightforward. "We need to talk. Meet me at the park in an hour." I knew he'd show up. He couldn't resist the chance to face me, to explain himself. I didn't want to show my hand just yet, but I wanted him to know I knew everything. I wanted him on edge, scared of what I might do. While I waited for Jack, I set up the rest of my plan. I prepared a folder with all the evidence I'd collected, screenshots, recordings, timestamps. I printed some of the messages just in case I needed physical proof. I also arranged to have a friend, someone I trusted, ready to come by and film the confrontation if things got out of hand. I wasn't interested in violence, but I wanted to document everything. When Jack arrived at the park, I was already waiting on a bench, my face cold and unreadable. He looked nervous, shifting his weight, avoiding eye contact. I didn't bother with pleasantries. So, I started, voice low and steady. "You thought you could get away with this, huh?" He swallowed hard. "I didn't mean for it to get this far. I was just stupid." "Stupid," I scoffed. "You're my brother, Jack. You're supposed to have my back. Instead, you're fucking my wife behind my back." "How long has this been going on?" His eyes flickered with shame. "Since a few months ago, it just happened." I shook my head, feeling the rage boil inside me. "You're a traitor, both of you. Do you even understand what you've done?" He looked down, silent. I took a deep breath, then pulled out the folder. "Here's everything, every message, every lie. I've got recordings, proof that you both were planning this for months. And Sarah, she's been lying to me from the start." Jack's face went pale. "Man, I didn't want to hurt you." "Didn't want to?" I repeated, voice rising. "You're my brother, you crossed every line, and Sarah, she's supposed to be my future wife. How could she do this to me?" Before he could respond, I pulled out my phone and pressed record. "This is your one chance to tell me the truth, without lying, without excuses, because I already know everything." He looked down, defeated. "Yeah, it's true. I'm sorry, man, I really am." I looked away, feeling the sick weight of betrayal. I'd come prepared for this moment, and I knew what I had to do next. I told Jack to leave, that I needed space to think. As he walked away, I pulled out my phone again, filming the scene for documentation. When I returned home, I confronted Sarah with everything. She was waiting in the living room, tense and trembling. I played the recordings, showed her the printed messages, laid out all the evidence. Her face crumpled as she realized I was serious. She begged, pleaded, apologized, but I wasn't listening anymore. "You ruined everything," I said coldly. "You betrayed me with my own brother. How could you do that?" She looked broken, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't mean for it to be like this. I love you, I swear I do. It was a mistake." A mistake. That's what she called it, a mistake that shattered my entire life. That day I made a decision. I handed her the divorce papers, told her to leave and never come back. I also handed over her keys, her phone, her belongings. "You don't get to hurt me and keep living in my house," I said flatly. "You're done." She looked at me with pleading eyes. "Please don't do this. I'll do anything." "No," I cut her off. "You made your bed, now lie in it." The finality of that moment hit me hard. I wanted to believe I'd be broken, but instead, I felt a strange sense of relief. She was gone, Jack was gone, and I was finally free from that nightmare. I sat alone in the silence that followed, feeling the weight lift slightly but knowing the scars would stay. It was a brutal lesson in trusting the wrong people, but at least now I knew the truth. And sometimes that's the only way to truly move on. After I handed her the papers and told her to leave, I stayed in the house for a long time, just staring at the empty doorway she had just walked out of. The silence was deafening, and the sharp ache in my chest was a dull, persistent throb. I felt numb in some ways, but oddly clear in others. I knew I'd never fully forget what happened, but at least I finally understood what I'd been blind to all along. Most of that day was a blur, packing up her things, listening to the echoes of her footsteps as she left. I handed her the keys, watched her drive away, and for the first time in months I could breathe without feeling like I was suffocating. My hands were still trembling, but I forced myself to sit down and breathe. I couldn't let the chaos consume me entirely. In the quiet that followed, I reflected on everything. The red flags I'd ignored, the subtle clues I'd dismissed, the way I'd trusted her with everything. I realized how deep the betrayal went, how it had twisted my sense of reality. But I also felt a flicker of something else: resolve. I'd been through hell, but I'd come out on the other side standing. I finally understood that revenge wasn't about hurting her or Jack just because I was angry. It was about reclaiming my dignity, about making sure I never let someone do this to me again. I was angry, yes, but I was also free. Free from the lies, the betrayal, and the false promises of forever. As I sat there, I took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs. I knew I'd need time to heal, to process everything, but I also knew that I'd survive. I'd rebuild. And that's what I want anyone reading this to remember. Trust is fragile, and people can betray you in ways you never imagined. But no matter how bad it gets, you can find a way out. You can pick up the pieces and move on. It's not easy and it hurts like hell, but you do it for yourself. Because at the end of the day, your peace matters more than anyone's lies. So I closed that chapter and started to write a new one. One where I value honesty, respect, and loyalty, things I once took for granted. I've learned that revenge isn't about revenge at all. It's about reclaiming your life and standing tall after everything's fallen apart. And that's exactly what I intend to do.